After a full week with the DJI Mini 5 Pro, I found a few surprises, a few quick quirks, and some features I didn't actually expect. Was it really as beginner friendly as DJI and other people online make out? Let's jump right into it. So, as you would have seen if you would have seen the unboxing video, the unboxing experience is really, really clean. You get everything you would expect in the box. And to be honest, from like a setup point of view, there's a moment where you obviously have to charge the batteries, charge the controller, that kind of thing. And then you're prompted to upgrade the firmware. And then after that, you're walked through a tutorial of how to utilize it, what joysticks do what on the controller. And then basically you can pretty much fly. And as someone who's known about drone legislation and known about the drone laws and used drone footage and etc. for many, many years, but someone who hadn't actually flown a drone until a week ago, I found personally that it's really simple to fly. And to be honest, with my experience with the Mini 5 Pro, I don't want to say this because it would potentially be perceived the wrong way, but I think you actually really need to try and crash it. I've found that even in my flight time with it in the different locations that I'll go into later in this video, for me, the ability and the sensors are very reliable, and you know, if you're following the drone code and you're following loss, etc., I don't think you'll have a single problem being able to fly it. And once you gain a little bit of practice, and you know, like any new skill, you need to put time into it, you need to put energy into it, you need to get your confidence built up with it so you can fly safely, but also be able to gain the kind of cinematic potential shots that you know you may be looking for, or you know, how to create those. And I do have a video coming up talking about those specific cinematic shots and how to create them, and how I use you know, the knowledge I have around filmmaking to get the best out of your drone. So if you are interested in that kind of video, then do make sure to be subscribed, because I'll be posting that at some point, hopefully next week. So for me as a beginner, I think for me, like, it installs a lot of confidence as an operator if the drone itself has a good amount of technology and is very unlikely, as long as it's being flown responsibly, to like crash into a tree or like a wall or etc. You know, like, you have to, in my opinion at least, have to really try and crash this drone. I've seen some clips online where I would argue people are flying quite recklessly. Maybe they were doing it as a test, etc. The only caveat I would add here is if you're using those pre-built modes like Spotlight, Quickshot, etc. Personally, I don't like those modes. I haven't tested them a huge amount. The small bit of testing I did do with Quickshot specifically was the drone just travels too fast and feels quite erratic in how it flies. So personally for me, I would much rather have that control and be able to frame up my shot and use my ability as an operator to get that parallax motion myself, rather than quote, the computer doing it. But of course I will be doing more testing in the coming weeks to share, maybe whether it was user error, like I believe it probably is, and or whether there's things and settings you should be tweaking and changing on the DJI Fly More app, or specifically whether it's just a DJI 5 thing as well. So where did I actually fly? What did I actually do? So a lot of the I guess the content I was looking to create was around in and around Salisbury, as you may have seen, and I'll link some videos relevant down below along with the playlist as well. I also popped up to Gravely Wood. I filmed a little bit around Wilton as well and flew around Wilton. I also filmed and flew around Langford Lakes specifically as well. And you know, for me, I wasn't filming in like particularly tight spaces, but that is when I would, you know, I would deliberately fly around the, like for example, the gym in Wilton. There's an outdoor gym, and I was deliberately trying to fly in between on my first couple of flights, just to show and just to look at kind of how close can the obstacle sensors get, and actually how confident was I at flying. But also what I found was as well, you know, it really does handle, you know, and it doesn't. There was no warning, like worrying signs or like specifically tricky areas. Again, like there was maybe some confidence things, and like maybe some overly concerned when it comes to like high congested areas. But if you are filming in the best light and you're filming early, then it's gonna be quieter. There's gonna be less people around. And to be honest, I think as I personally grow as a drone operator and as I get more experience, of course, flying within the drone code and etc. But you know, as I look to get more experience in rural and or city like areas with some up and coming projects and etc. as well, I think my confidence will only grow. And I think, for me, it doesn't, if you were going to ask the question, I guess, of like, where should you take the Mini Pro first? I would personally, especially if you're new to flying, the first thing I did was go to an open space where it's unlikely to have a huge amount of people, and I was able to fly very safely and just get my grips on, okay, well, how does this drone go up? How does this drone go down? How do I, look to, maybe move the gimbal, those kind of things, etc. And I guess to an extent, the point I'm making here is like, if you're following the drone code, you shouldn't really have an issue with understanding and being aware and constantly looking around and constantly evaluating and looking. And, the fact that the drone can hover itself, and, I feel always in the time, like I don't ever feel like the drone is going to specifically do something erratic or do something random, and it's only going to do what I ask it to do. So in that respect, it gives me a lot of confidence when I am flying around these more urban areas or flying around, where there's a lot of trees or etc. And it allows me to be in a position where I can get the shots I'm looking for, and I can really think about creative shot selection when it comes to adding the drone footage and adding a drone into my kit as a video professional. It's been a lot of conversation specifically online about image quality and the zoom. Specifically, I think for me, the main kind of takeaway and the main thing that I would really recommend you consider if you are kind of weighing up, do I get the 4 or do I get the 5? For me, one of the reasons why I got the 5 is because the 2x zoom, even though it is a lossless crop in on the sensor, it's not another lens, it acts as if it is, because I'm actually really astonished and really happy with the quality that the footage comes out with. Also, the 10-bit is beautiful to work with. It's a really nice codec to work with, and it matches really nicely. I haven't fully tested this because I haven't done a promotional film yet, but from the small amount of testing I have done to my Nikon camera and etc., the footage the color match can be nearly perfect and nearly very, very close in that respect as well. And it's just a really nice piece of footage to work with. With very basic color grading and basic LUTs, you can get a really strong image out of it that has pretty strong dynamic range, to be honest. But again, if you're filming in the best light, then that wouldn't be as much of an issue. The only time where I think it maybe runs into issues potentially is in high contrasty scenes. So I had a couple of issues at like midday, and a couple of issues where it was a very strong contrast image between the lightest part and the darkest part of the image at a couple of sunset shots, but that's something I will continue to test more and more as I capture more and more content. And of course, I'll be sharing what I can on the YouTube channel as well, so make sure to be subscribed if you do not want to miss any more of my DJI content as a whole. But overall, I think image quality is really, really, really strong and really, really nice to see. And some from, I think if I recall correctly, I've edited some stuff from the DJI's Mini 3 and a little bit from the Air series of drones as well, and it does stack up in that respect as well. And with the changes in 2026 coming, I think you'll see a lot more Air 3S or potentially rumored to being Air 4S coming when it comes to having more of those options, especially in urban environments as well. Special features, I've already mentioned Quickshot. Personally, I think it's potentially tricky or potentially a bit fast for me. And I also saw a video yesterday talking about the fact that it has some issues with old school spotlight when it comes to filming in cine mode and getting that really slow orbit around something. But this is something I'm going to be further testing in the next couple of weeks. So be able to stay tuned for a further follow-up video on that specifically when I get out next week to test it. And also then the hyperlapse features as well. I've done some very basic hyperlapse testing. I think for me personally, I think I only had one usable hyperlapse from the time that I actually spent capturing hyperlapses. The keys though is to understand how to create hyperlapses, and they would be true whether it's ground filming or in the sky. And you want a small amount of motion in that respect as well. You have the option, of course, of within the DJI Fly More app to capture RAWs, JPEGs, and then it can also create that video itself, but I found that a couple of the motions or a couple of the actual hyperlapses that I captured last time I filmed weren't as usable. I think, as I say, I think I got one. And something to be aware of as well, though, when you are filming hyperlapses, is you can't use the 2x crop. Obviously, you can crop in on the footage after the fact, but you are only able to use what I would describe as the 24mm native 1-inch sensor lens, so you can only capture it from a wider perspective. But of course, you will, if you edit the images after the fact, then you will have the option to be able to stabilize that, but also then be able to crop in on that image to get a very similar look to if you were using the 2x crop. Battery life is something which I think, some people will have questions about. Personally, I found the batteries just aren't really something I need to worry about that much, to be honest. I mean, if you're just getting a quick establisher and an ending shot with a few other drone shots in the middle, maybe you're at an event or you're showcasing a location or a city, I was probably averaging with 3 batteries, and I carry 3 batteries with me. I wasn't charging them in between, but I was just looking at those 3 batteries and then charging them before the shoot, make sure I had 3-4 batteries, and I was getting close to probably about an hour total flight time when it came to actually in the sky, maybe a little bit longer depending on how far you're flying, how you're flying, etc., wind conditions, etc. But overall, it's not really something I overly worry about. As long as I've got 2 or 3 batteries with me, then I'm not overly fast. I'm not really even going to think about the actual battery life of the drone itself. And if need be, you can always plug it into the wall and charge it during your shoot, on downtime, etc., or plug it into a V-lock, etc. You have that capability, so basically hot swap those batteries and basically fly forever. I would recommend, though, that you use a SD card. The internal storage is great, but you do have to plug the drone in to get the footage off. And I personally just prefer the workflow of having an SD card. So personally, I bought a 1TB Lex R1 for about 100 quid or so, and no, I don't need to think about storage at all. I don't really clear the cards before filming. I might do before some commercial work starts, but bar that, I think it's 26 hours at 10-bit 4K, in 24p, and of course this drone does go up to 60p 4K as well. Very quick story. I was very fortunate as part of some of my testing in this first week to go up to Gravely Woods and capture the kind of start of the autumn transition, start of the autumn colours. And during that time, we had a flash rainstorm. So I got the drone down quickly, etc. Obviously, this is not rated to do. Obviously, you really shouldn't be flying in the rain. And also, you don't really necessarily, I don't think, want to fly in the rain also to get the best footage out of it. But all I did was just let it dry overnight. I think we only got roughly a little bit of wet, a little bit of rain on the actual surface of it. I checked the battery, I checked the internals, everything seemed dry, etc., etc. Wipe it down quickly, get it out of the sky quickly, land wherever appropriate, as fast as you can, and then don't power it on for 12 hours or so. I think I left it probably about, by the time we got back, about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then the next morning I did a test flight inside, and then I also popped out locally to do a test flight locally, because I didn't want to obviously take the drone out into somewhere like Salisbury and fly it maybe a little bit further or a little bit for a longer period of time or higher, etc., without fully testing it after it getting a little bit rained on as well. So they can withstand a little bit of rain. Of course, DJI isn't going to necessarily recommend it, but in my experience, they're absolutely fine, and the drone has flown multiple occasions, multiple times, and there's no erratic behavior, etc. But that is kind of your question on your risk profile as a whole. I didn't go out of my way to fly in the rain, but I just thought I would mention it because it was a real life experience that I had. And just the basic rules apply when you are flying. Be aware of your surroundings. When you're taking off and landing, being careful of uninvolved people, those kind of things. And that's just about being overall safe in that respect as well. But as a drone, specifically, absolutely stunning piece of kit. A couple of notes here regarding the connection signal when it comes to the actual controller. Again, I always fly within VLOS specifically, but I've never ran into an issue at all. I think if I remember correctly. Like I maybe dropped 1 bar specifically when I was filming on a sunrise, but again, like if you're filming in VLOS specifically, or you're filming in line of sight, then you won't really run into range issues personally. But I haven't done a full range test, but for me personally, like I haven't really seen like any issues regarding like the signal not really happening, or like the controller losing signal, or you know, being any errors in that respect. I did get a couple of like wind warnings specifically on a specifically windy day when it got a little bit rained on, but it does give you warning, and it does say, look, strong winds, but also I'm quite surprised with how well the footage comes out, even with it that being that windy, because it's clearly doing the job that you would want it to do as a gimbal, which is lovely to see, and gives me a lot of confidence to fly in maybe a slightly breezier conditions. Of course, you should still be flying safely, but as a you know, operator who's looking for smooth aerial footage, then of course it's a great opportunity for you and I to be able to do that in maybe slightly windier conditions. And keep in mind, what you feel on the ground will be lesser, and I would probably add about 5 degrees there or thereabouts when it comes to, excuse me, the overall just how windy it is, and just be careful. Size and weight, to be honest, I mean, I can get it in the smaller DJI bag without a single problem. I also put it in my larger kit bag in a couple of cases as well, so fits really nicely in a bag. It's one that you can just carry around and it won't really be an issue. From a noise point of view, I don't think, some people are more curious, I think, like from the public's point of view. From my experience, like I had a really nice interaction with a mother and a son who was like, oh my god, it's a helicopter, etc., and I had quite a nice conversation with them. But I haven't had any negative experiences, and people, I guess, are more commonly known as what a drone is and what it's used for. And you know, as long as you're cautious and you're aware of the people and you're aware of your surroundings, you won't really run into any problems in that respect. And as I say, go out of your way to get landowner permission where it's required, so that you know, you're not going to be in that level of you know, stress, or level of focus, or level of push, or like potentially having a conflict whilst flying, because of course that's going to mean that you're potentially not as safe as you could be. Again, as someone who comes from a filmmaking background but has worked with drone footage for a long time, but for me, I didn't really have any issues with like setup. It was really easy to start learning, and really I just needed to invest, and I would just recommend you invest the time in it. Specifically, I've spent, you know, as much time as I possibly can when it comes to actually spending time with this drone and trying to get competent with the drone, etc. So in that respect, I think, you know, it's definitely something which you could get competent with if you're willing to put the time and energy in, and just spend time with it as a whole. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Thank you ever so much for joining me, ladies and gents. I hope you took value from this video. If you did, make sure to be subscribed. And the next video, we'll be talking about my top 5 tips and tricks for cinematic footage using your drone, how to achieve it, but also what they're called and how they're used in filmmaking. YouTube believes that you will enjoy this video, so why not click it and be subscribed here. And I'll see you very soon.